Does U.S. policy, like the invasion of Lebanon, backing the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, like the invasion of Iraq, does that cause resentment in the region that makes your problem harder and that Al-Qaeda types feed into?
In 1994, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed put together a plot that is very similar to this plot, and in some ways is a model for this kind of plot, the one we saw this week. Now, in 1994, there wasn't any war in Iraq, there wasn't any invasion of Lebanon. I mean, the fact of the matter is, history teaches us we do not provoke terrorism. What tends to foster terrorism is when the terrorists think we're weak, or when we try to appease them.
But Secretary, I mean, Israel invaded Lebanon and occupied it for 20 years beginning in the 1980s and was still occupying it on what you're talking about. The Gulf War, the first Gulf War, which bin Laden rhetorically uses to gain following, was it just a few years before the 1994 attempted hideous terrorist attack? Isn't U.S. policy trying to put out the fire with gasoline?
See, my observation of the history of this is that no matter what we do or don't do, terrorists are going to carry out their acts, but the thing that is most likely to spur terrorism is weakness. When terrorists saw us withdraw from Somalia, that actually inspired them to believe they could win against us. When we fight back and when we take the war to them, that actually sets them back. There's no doubt in my mind that the war against terror is won through strength and not through weakness, by taking the war to the enemy and not by retreating.
Thank you very much.
Just one last question.
We gotta keep on schedule.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'd like to go back to the foreign policy, if I could, gentlemen. You spoke about the motivations of the terrorists and how we can decipher them. This is bin Laden's statement from October 2004, and he's talking about what he says his initial motivation is in seeing the Israeli bombing of Lebanon back in 1982. He said, quote, "When I saw those destroyed towers in Lebanon, it sparked in my mind that the oppressors should be punished in the same way, and that we should destroy towers in America so they can taste what we tasted, and so they will stop killing our women and children." Now his stated goals and his real goals, just like other politicians' stated goals and real goals, might be different. But those are his stated motivations that he gets.
Osama bin Laden is a very skillful propagandist. He weaves all kinds of possible appeals to the radicalized Muslim world. Some of it is religious, theological, philosophical. Some of it relates to American policy. The original thing that set off Osama bin Laden was the presence of American forces in Saudi Arabia,
Which have been removed.
which have now been removed. That's correct. But
So he went
so
on.
I think it is well. We withdrew those, I think, for our own interests. You can argue whether he would claim it's a victory. We would not, of course. But the point is that he cleverly weaves a lot of different appeals to get this radicalized Muslim world.
But don't we make matters worse? But now we're backing another Israeli invasion of Lebanon. Aren't we planting the seeds of further terrorism? Aren't we putting out the fire with gasoline here? And you can do all the security measures, all the law enforcement, but if that continues, isn't that a fundamental?
Foreign policy gets very complicated. When you take certain actions to support a friend, the security of Israel, as we did, it has consequences. No question about it. Look, I don't want to get into an argument about Middle East policy.
I'm broadening it out. Sibel Edmonds is a whistleblower who I believe came. Sibel Edmonds, are you familiar? She was a translator for the FBI. I believe that she came to the commission. I don't believe that you folks considered her work and her saying that part of the FBI had been infiltrated by foreign, presumably Turkish elements, and her case is now under seal. Are you continuing to consider that, or have you had second thoughts about taking up what she brought to the commission, which I believe was not included in the commission report?
There were thousands and thousands of things brought to the attention of the commission. When you have a commission investigation with a deadline, as we did, you have to make many, many judgments about what evidence is most credible and what evidence is less credible. I don't know that we made 100%, we were 100% right in all of our judgments. We did investigate her particular charge, and we thought it was less credible than a lot of other things. But that's, look, the 9/11 Commission report is not a final report. Okay, I think
I mean, have you had second thoughts since then?
I don't know.
On the democracy question, you both have said that U.S. policy is to help democracy in the Middle East, but Israel is bombing Lebanon, which was a functioning democracy. It had a parliament with the backing of Saudi Arabia. So is that the actual motivation of U.S. policy when it gives the backhand to the Palestinians when they have a democratic election, and to the Lebanese getting their infrastructure pummeled when they're a democracy? And we're doing this in conjunction with the Saudis, perhaps the most autocratic regime in the region. It doesn't add up, and it doesn't add up to the people of the region. Does it add up to you?
Well, there's no question that we've got to look hard at the autocratic regimes in the Middle East and the ones we support and why. And I think we've got to work with those leaders to make those regimes less autocratic. There's no question about it. I think we've got to, not only that, we've got to help some of them education systems, because these madrasas, which we know teach hate in a lot of cases, are there for a reason. They're there because there aren't schools that are alternatives. These young people in the Middle East cannot go to the kind of school we talk about and learn trades or skills that will enable them to support a family. So they go and learn about religion, that's all they learn about, then they get out and they can't support a family, and they're destitute, and therefore they're liable to look at ideologies and look at other things.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very
I
much.
mean, that's not being done by Hezbollah. What about what? I mean, that's what the Saudis.
We should not get them in Afghanistan because we had no allies in the Pakistan on one side. No one had sanctions all over the place. So that, we're not talking about human rights, atomic, totally sanctions. So they weren't friendly with us, we weren't friendly with them. And they were looking other ways. And the other side was Iran. And Iran actually didn't like the Taliban. And Iran was helping Massoud, but we couldn't do anything with Iran and not our friends. So, I just, in this new world of ours, I just question whether or not we should isolate these countries we disagree with, or whether we should find ways to work with them, because if we had working actively with Iran on one side and Pakistan on the other, perhaps that might have been